Hello everyone and welcome to Baron's Den. For today's preview, we are looking at an upcoming tabletop tournament that I'm entering in just a couple of weeks. It is the Dorset Dungeon Bowl, which is going to be taking place at Entoyment Wargaming in Poole in Dorset. So quite a trek for me, for somebody who's from the West Midlands. I've got about 3 hours, 10 minutes journey down to the south coast to be involved in this tournament. But it's one I'm very much looking forward to. And that is primarily because, two reasons. First of all, it's been run by the wonderful Bonehead Podcast team. If by some miracle you've managed to find my channel and not seen the Bonehead Podcast before, please make sure you check it out. They produce amazing content for Blood Bowl. They run awesome tournaments. I've been to many myself, and they do ever so much for the Blood Bowl community. And they have a real good laugh with it as well. You can get so much advice and knowledge from them, but also the sheer entertainment value is brilliant as well. They have a great team there. Bonehead Ben, the OG member who founded the Bonehead Podcast. Blood Tithe Ben, the awesome painter who now is living the dream and painting for his living, which is brilliant. And then, of course, you've got Ian Triple O, and Miltonio Banderas Milton, who all work together to put on some fabulous tournaments and just chat Blood Bowl, their brilliant podcast. So please, if you haven't checked it out, make sure you check out the Bonehead Podcast. And the other reason why I'm really looking forward to it, it's been held at Entoyment Wargaming, which is in Poole, and it is a veritable treasure trove of amazing wargaming materials. It just feels like a cave of wonders when you're in there. There's just wall-to-wall miniature wargaming goodness, card games, virtually any sort of hobby gaming you'll find at Entoyment. And then in the upstairs floor, we'll play our tournament, and you can get drinks brought to you. They have food. It's just an amazing venue for tournaments and for gaming in general. But also, it's a brilliant place to get your supplies for your miniatures games. You can use the website to order your stuff. Obviously, it comes at a discounted price, and they're just really good people. So please support them in any way that you can by purchasing any of your Blood Bowl stuff that you need from Entoyment. If you are part in this country, as another option to buying it from other third party. But both the Bonehead Podcast and Entoyment are brilliant, and they're coming together to put on the Dorset Dungeon Bowl. So let's get into a bit more about what the Dorset Dungeon Bowl is all about. So it is a Dungeon Bowl tournament for a start, so we'll be playing Dungeon Bowl. Now, I haven't played Dungeon Bowl before. I've been playing since the mid-90s. I've played hundreds of tabletop games in my life, thousands of Blood Bowl 1, 2 and 3 games, and yet I've not played a single Dungeon Bowl game against a real-life opponent. I've theory played it, and I've built a few dungeons just to look at layouts and stuff when I bought the actual game, but I've never actually played a game. So this will be a new format for me to try. But it's also part of the Bonehead Podcast tournament series, so they run several tournaments throughout the year, and the points you gain from each one can be added up to give an overall tournament series winner. So I took part in Beachhead 2024 earlier this year in February. There was an 11s tournament and a 7s tournament, and so far my combined points in there has put me, I think, 4th overall in the Sylvanian Spotlight mini league. They're going to be awarding championship for each keyword, the way they organise the races. So there'll be one for Badlands Brawl, one for Underworld Challenge, one for Sylvanian Spotlight, so on and so forth. And I took a Shambling Undead, so I'm in the Sylvanian Spotlight. So I'm looking to build upon what I did with my Shambling Undead at Beachhead. I didn't do so well in the 7s, which is unusual for me. I tend to usually do better in 7s than 11s. But I was unbeaten in the 11s event, and I played some very good opposition, including the guy who founded the Blood Bowl Tactics website. So that was a bit of a shock when I realised I was playing Mr. Blood Bowl Tactics. But I came away with a draw, and I was really pleased with the way the 11s day went. So building on that, for this tournament, I thought, well, I'll get involved and I'll take a College of Death team because, I may as well keep building towards the Sylvanian Spotlight points in the tournament series. So College of Death was the natural choice. The only other one I suppose I could have gone for is I could have gone College of Beasts because there are werewolves in that. So I think that could allow me to put towards Sylvanian Spotlight points overall. But it wouldn't have felt very Sylvanian Spotlight, so I went for the College of Death. The tournament will use TourPlay, the competition organiser, which, if you haven't seen, is a brilliant way to organise tournaments and to build rosters and just basically to run a smooth event. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can check out TourPlay. I will also leave links for the Bonehead Podcast website, the YouTube channel, and also the Entoyment website, so you can check all of that out if you haven't already. So we'll be using Dungeon Bowl college teams, so all teams this year will use the Dungeon Bowl colleges. They won't be using regular Blood Bowl teams, which they have allowed in the past. I think that's largely because of TourPlay. They want to make sure that they don't run into any problems of trying to use teams that aren't normally sanctioned to play that format of Blood Bowl. And they'll come with a 1 million build, which proved quite challenging for me, which you'll see in a minute. There'll be 3 matches using the 3-ball format. So we'll be playing 3 matches across the day, and we'll be using a 3-ball format. So what that means is, in Dungeon Bowl, usually you are trying to uncover 1 ball and then score in your opposition's dungeon zone. But the problem that you have is, obviously, your opposition are trying to stop you and then take the ball off you and score in the other one. The only downside to that format is sometimes the ball can get bogged down in a bit of a mass of flesh stuck in a corridor, and it can turn into a bit of a grind fest. So the 3-ball format means that in the 6 treasure chests, instead of just being 1 ball, there are 3. So you could have 2 balls moving around the dungeon at any one time, or even 3. So the idea is that provides a little bit more excitement and variance in how the matches can go. So we'll be playing the 3-ball format. There are no star players, and just bribe inducements. But every college will get a free college wizard. So I'll be getting the College of Death wizard, which is particularly good because he's a pretty good wizard. And then finally, the skill package will be 0 to 4 primaries and 1 secondary, or just 0 to 5 primary skills if that's what you wish. So, my College of Death team are the Nagashizar Nightmares. The Nagashizar Nightmares are an amalgamation of many of the teams that I've got. So you'll notice they aren't all uniform. There's a few different colours going on there. That's because I haven't got the time to paint a brand new Dungeon Bowl team with things that I've got going on at the moment. So I've tried to utilise the teams I already have painted. And luckily I do have a vampire team, I do have a shambling undead, and I do have a necromantic. So I'll be using 2 whites, a mummy, a ghoul runner, and a zombie from the shambling undead team. Now, one of the whites is going to have to be Ivan, because I took Ivan to Beachhead earlier this year. He's not Ivan, because we're not allowed star players, so he will just be another white blitzer. But he's going to be the one that comes with tackle. So that will kind of help people. They'll see him and think, oh, he's the tackle white, and it will stand out. Then I'll be taking 1 Wraith, 1 Flesh Golem, and 1 Ghoul Runner from my Necromantic Horror team. And finally, I will be taking 1 Vampire and 2 Thralls from my Vampire team. So, this is my team build. So, I had the option from the Linemen pool, I could have had Thralls, Zombies, and Skeletons. From the Runners, I can have Ghouls and Vampire Runners. From the Blitzers, I can have Whites and Wraiths. From the Throwers, I think it's just Vampire Throwers. Are there any other Throwers? Don't think so. Blockers, you can have Flesh Golems. And then big guys, you can have the Mummies and the Vargeists. Oh, I suppose Vampire Blitzers would go as well with the Wraith and the White Blitzer. So why have I decided to go with this setup? At first, when I considered this, I thought, I'm not sure if I want to take a Vampire. And the reason for that was, in 2022, I took a mixed human vampire team to Bonehead Bowl 2022, and the whole concept of the Bonehead Bowl Championship, which again run by the Bonehead Podcast, is that they introduced mixed teams. The idea of mixing 2 teams together and taking a set number from each team to get the most off, and that worked really well for me with vampire humans, because back then the team was a team of legend, and instead of having bloodlust they had animal savagery, which meant that they could utilise their savagery on all of the human players and it wouldn't have mattered. The trouble with Bloodlust is it names Thralls as the only player that the vampire can bite. So if you want to take vampires, you probably want to be taking Thralls as well. And I kind of worried that actually it's alright on a team that's got lots of Thralls, whereas on a mixed team like this, I'm going to have to bring a limited number of Thralls, and it was just a question of whether actually it was going to work very well. But in the end, I thought you cannot pass off what a vampire has to offer. Strength 4, Edge 2+, it can pass, and it comes with the pass skill. It's got Hypnotic Gaze. It's reasonably tough and quick, and it can regenerate. So if someone kills him, there's a chance he'll regenerate and be able to be teleported back into the fray. And I've given him Pro. just to help with that bloodlust situation. He will come with 2 Thrall linemen. The idea is that one of those will accompany him. I thought also Thrall linemen might be quite good to use as people to open the chests because they are the most expendable and yet not slow. Zombies would be even better because they've got tougher armour, but they are slow, so getting them close to a chest might be quite challenging. So that's what I have gone for. 1 vampire and 2 thralls. Ghouls are a no-brainer because they come with dodge. They're the fastest players on the team, and I've given both of mine block. Couldn't go for more because of, again, financial constraints. I also wanted 2 blitzers, mainly for that block, but also I've given 1 tackle to help me deal with other dodgers. I've gone with 1 wraith, and the idea behind the wraith is I've given it guard, and the idea is that he can move with the white with tackle to guarantee some 2-die blocks when I need them, or even 1 die up a stronger opposition player. And also, because I've got sidestep, I'd noticed with the College of Death Wizard, for his ability to work, you need to be basing an opposition player at the start of your turn, and I thought sidestep might help me keep one of my players close to opposition players. I then wanted a couple of high strength players to keep some of the opposition out of my end zone, so I've gone for 1 of each, largely because of financial reasons, but I decided I wanted a flesh golem for the stand firm ability, but I also wanted a mummy to be able to have that strength 5 piece with mighty blow. He isn't going to be moving far, so the movement shouldn't be too much of a problem. And finally, I had money left over. I could have gone for another thrall, but I thought I might need a bit more toughness, and so I've gone with the zombie. He'll be coming in probably at the end to shore up the defence and, you know, just get in the way, really. So that is my team. What have I ignored? I've ignored the Vargeist because you can't... I felt like I couldn't dive too much into the vampire team without bringing more thralls. Or thralls. I keep saying thralls. Is it thrall or thrall? I'm not sure. If I'm getting it wrong, ignore me. I'm going to switch to thrall now because it sounds better. Yeah, so the thrall linemen, I'd have to have a lot of them if I had more vampires, and I just thought I'm going to eat through half my team. So that kind of ruled out utilising many of the other vampires. The only other consideration was perhaps running a runner instead of the thrower. Or maybe a runner on top of the thrower. But again, that bloodlust ability I want to minimise on my team, and I don't want it to go crazy. And I've already got some pretty fast players. Maybe not quite as fast as the vampire runner, but they are pretty speedy players. Sorry, the other one I was going to mention, of course, is the werewolf. I love my werewolves on my necromantic team, but sadly they weren't even an option because they're in the College of Beasts. It feels like you're mixing necromantic horror and shambling undead until the vampires came out, that was, and you're missing out on their best player, I think, across both teams, and that's the werewolf. However, now we've got vampires, it's given them some much needed va-va-voom, shall we say, on top of what they already have. So that is the Nagashizar Nightmares, my College of Death team, with the extra skills of blocks on the ghouls, tackle on one of the whites, guard on the wraith, and pro on the vampire. So basically, I'm going to split my team into little groups. That's going to be my strategy going forward. First of all, I've got group 1, which is the Seekers. In this group, there'll be 1 vampire thrower with pro, 2 of the thrall linemen, a white blitzer, and 1 of the ghoul runners with block. And the idea for this team is they're the team that are going after the ball. Now, initially, only 3 of them will be in deployments. So that will be the vampire, 1 of the thralls, and the ghoul. They're going to go out and try and find one of those balls in one of the treasure chests. Hopefully the other thrall and the white blitzer will be able to link up with them when they teleport in later. Their whole point is to get the ball, and they're going to try and score with it. I'm going to hope to utilise the vampire to hypno-gaze some defenders into a stupor so my other players can walk through. And then either the thrall or the lime or the ghoul, whoever's got the ball, will be able to walk through. Preferably on the ghoul, but obviously if I open a chest with the thrall and he happens to have the ball, it's not the end of the world, but it just means without block or dodge he's going to be easier for the opposition to take down. So really I want the ghoul to be picking up the ball and scoring. The white will be joining them, hopefully to punch holes where needed, and the thralls are mainly there as chest fodder and blood bags for my vampire thrower. But with pro, I'm hoping Bloodlust doesn't activate too often. So that's the Seekers. Then I've got my kill team. I've called it a kill team, which would suggest I've laid on skills like Mighty Blow to help remove players. I suppose kill team was a bit of a badly named team, but it just sounds good. It's more the team that's going to go after the opposition's ball, the ball that the opposition has picked up whilst I've picked up mine. And the idea behind this is you've got my tackle blitzer backed up by the wraith with guard, and then the ghoul runner hanging around in the background waiting to steal the ball when the opportunity presents itself. And then there's another aspect to this team that I'll talk about at the end that involves my College of Death wizard. So yes, white goes in with the bit of guard from the Wraith. They'll find it hard to get rid of the Wraith with foul appearance, block and sidestep, and that will hopefully allow my tackle blitzer to get in that tackle onto the player that I want to take out, which will probably have dodge. I'm thinking gutter runners, wood elves, stunties, all sorts of players who might end up with the ball that this tackle guy is going to be able to deal with. And then finally, my goalkeepers. I've called them this because they're going to hang around the end zone and try and stop people from getting through. So that's my mummy, my flesh golem, and my zombie. And the flesh golem's pretty good at this because he's got stand firm, and the mummy, being strength 5, means that people are going to need to gang up on them to take them down. Shouldn't have to worry about too much hypno-gaze coming against me unless I play another College of Death team. And the only other kind of player I've got to worry about are those stunties, particularly snotlings, that could just walk straight past them on 2+ dodges. So I have got to be aware of that. I cannot solely rely on these players just to gum up a corridor and that's all they need to do. I might drop back other support for them if and when it's needed. There are, as you'll see from the map, there are 3 entrances to most of the end zones. So I've got 3 players here, and I'll move those around depending on where the action's going to be mostly based. I mean, if I'm unlucky, they might attack me from 3 different directions, but the likelihood is it's only going to come from 1 or 2. So I'll be able to weight the defence to one side or the other. So this is the first map. I'm not going to go through all the maps. There's a different map for each game that you play, and this is going to be the map for the first game. But all of the maps are very good in the way that they've been organised because they're all symmetrical, so it doesn't really favour one side or the other. And they all follow that similar format of having the end zone with 3 entrances, and on the whole 3 kind of main channels through the map. One I think has more like 4 channels, but they all feed into 3 ways to access the opposition's end zone. So you have got to keep your eye on 3 different ways into your base, as it were. So, for deployment, I'm going to be looking at placing these players. And the reason is, I want the Vampire Thrower straight in there because he's going to be very important to the team that collects the ball. And he's got the Thrall to go with him. I also want to set off both the tag team of the White Blitzer with Tackle and the Wraith with Guard, because I want them to go hunting for the other ball, but more likely the opposition team who've got that ball. And finally, I need to get the 2 goalkeepers in position because they are slow. And if they teleport into the wrong place, then it's going to take them forever to get them to where I want them to go. So I do need to deploy them quite quickly and securely in the place I want them. The downside to this is that it means that I'm only going to have 4 players venturing out to get the ball initially. And here are my subs who are ready to come on for when each turn one of these will teleport in, and I'll choose the player depending on how the action is unfolding. Zombie will probably be last, and the ghouls will be the first 2 probably. But the reason I've left the ghouls is because I know they've got high movement, so no matter where they pop out, they should be able to head off in the direction I want them to. If I'm really unlucky, they'll teleport right next to the opposition. The opposition will tackle them and take them out of the game. But that's worst case. I'm hoping that they might end up close to the action that I want them to, or at least in an open area that they can scarper and catch up with their teammates. So here's just an example of where I've set up my deployment. I've colour-coded them for the teams that I've got them moving into. So I've got my bench here and the deployment there with the Vampire, the Thrall, who are going to go looking for the ball, the White and the Wraith and the White Blitzer, who are going to go looking for the opposition, and then the Flesh Golem and the Mummy, who are going to hang back. And then so after turn 1, I could be into a position like this where I've got my Flesh Golem and Mummy in position. Of course, I will keep moving. They've only got 3 and 4 movement, but that should be okay for just keeping an eye on these entrances. And also by now, my Vampire and my Thrower have moved up to the closest chest, which is here. And my Wraith and my Blitzer have set off in the other direction. Obviously, if the opposition comes to this side, I might send the Wraith and the Blitzer through the middle. But their job is to go hunting after the opposition. And then I've just put the Ghoul on. That's just an example of where he might teleport if I'm unlucky. And if I'm really unlucky, the opposition may have moved into this corner here. But we'll have to wait and see. It would be a dream, obviously, if he teleported into here or here. But we'll wait and see what happens. And then, of course, moving forward, this isn't turn 2, but in the future, I'll be looking for this kind of setup. My mummy, zombie, and flesh golem hanging back. My seeking team all bunched together. And my hunting team together. They might not be in these positions because obviously as the game's unfolded and my opposition's moved in certain places, they might be in the middle instead. I also might have some of the players who've teleported in random positions because they've ended up on, opposite teleporters. And in fact, that's quite likely. And my overall strategy the linchpin isn't this number of players being in each team. It's just the overall idea that I'm working to. But for example, the zombie could end up here and he's never going to get all the way back there. But if that were the case, I might send somebody else back to help them if they need it. And the zombie can just slowly meander his way to assisting one of the other teams. So I'm trying to make sure that there's flexibility within my plan. But my basic idea is these guys looking after my end zone, these guys getting the ball and scoring, and these guys hurting the opposition and getting the ball off them. Obviously, there'd be a third ball, and whichever team is free, after they've done their initial job, will go looking and sorting out the third ball. Maybe these guys will help turn over the third ball at some point when the opposition come a-knocking. Okay, so, last thing I wanted to talk about was the Amethyst Wizard. So, in the College of Death, the Amethyst Wizard gives you the spell Life Drain. So Life Drain is, you may cast this spell at the start of any of your team turns, before any player is activated. Choose a player on the opposition team that is marked by a friendly player. Immediately make an injury roll for the opposition player. So this is brilliant, which means no matter what's happened, as long as you've got a player marking one of your opposition players at the start of your turn, you're going to pretty much, well, not remove them, but you're going to put them down and they're going to be at the very least stunned, which is going to be a great way of sacking the ball, which is why I've sent my Wraith with my hunting team. The idea is that he'll glue himself, if he can, to the ball carrier, or maybe even to a corner of a cage or a supporting player. We can drain the life out of that person, so they go down, allowing then for the ghoul to either pick up a loose ball or send the white in to blitz the ball carrier, who's hopefully been left open from the life draining. So that's the idea of utilising the College of Death Wizard. Now, obviously, that scenario might not come about. So the College of Death Wizard could also be used to take out someone who's about to score against you. If you can just about hang on to somebody in their tackle zone at the start of your turn. That's the tricky part of this. It sounds amazing, but the difficulty is your opponent's going to be has got to end their turn with a player still marking the ball, the person you want to take down. And if you want to take down the ball carrier, it's unlikely that your opposition is going to leave that player marked, which is why I've got that sidestepping Wraith with foul appearance as a real annoyance that will hopefully stick to that player. But we'll wait and see. It might not come about that way. I might use it to remove a defender from the end zone. Maybe I could tag a high-strength opposition player with a lowly thrall or zombie who gets up the following turn, and then I use the life drain to remove them. But that's generally the idea for my College of Death Amethyst Wizard. Point to make prizes. So I thought I'd talk through how the points are going to work. So for the match win, you get 40 points. For a draw, you get 20. And a loss, you get 10. You get 2 points for each touchdown. Obviously, there's 3 balls, so that's a maximum of 6. You get a point for a perfect defense. And you get 1 point per casualty that you cause to a maximum of 5. So I imagine the maximum amount of points for a win would be 40 plus the 6 plus the 1 is 47 plus 5 is 52 points. So that's going to be the maximum you can get from each game. But even if you lose, you can get 10 points, and if you cause a few casualties or at least score 1 touchdown, you're still going to be building up some points, so that's really good. The games have a time limit of 1 hour 45 minutes, or until all 3 touchdowns have been scored. I think something they found with previous Dungeon Bowl tournaments is sometimes the games can be over really quickly when there's only 1 ball to find. And if things happen to go well and you can pick up the ball and score, that could make for a very short game. Equally, you could have the opposite problem where if it gets ground down into a attrition war in a corridor, it could go on forever. So I like the way that they've done this with a 1 hour 45 time limit or the maximum of 3 touchdowns being scored. And then the prizes and the awards are for the overall champion, obviously, the stunty champion. So this is college teams containing only stunty and or strength 5 players. So I couldn't have done that with College of Death, but let's say in College of Life you only took the Snotlings and the Tree Men, or the Rot Beast, I think is not the Rot Beast. What's it called? The Rot Spawn. That would qualify. Or if you took what's in Heaven, Skinks. I don't think there is a big guy, is there? Just Skinks. If you fancy just Skinks in College of Heavens, why would you do that when you have Norse and Amazon in that team as well? But you might decide that you fancy it. Or Goblins in Shadow, or Halflings. I think they're in Life as well. So there could be some stunty teams out there. But I don't think there'll be many this year, so it might be worth somebody out there putting a stunty team together, just because it's not like a normal tournament where there are full stunty teams that are actually viable. Here you've got teams that contain stunty players, and to run it as stunty you can only pick those players. So you're taking a small pool out of a potentially quite diverse team, so that might put people off. But even so, that would be cool to see a couple of those. Best team awards is for what people dub the best team. That might not just be to do with painting, that could be to do with the way they've themed the team, the story that they're generating with that team. My team will not be going towards that because it is neither well painted or themed particularly, as I've had to pinch models from 3 different teams. So the colour scheme isn't completely linked, but I think there's enough colour so you can associate them as the same team, but no, I wouldn't be putting mine forward for that. Participation trophy for anyone who finishes last place, which is fine if that's what we get. I've never won a trophy at a Blood Bowl tournament yet, tabletop. So if that's the one I won, I'd be very happy with that. Most touchdowns, most casualties, and most fouls. But yeah, lots of different awards to shoot for. And of course, I will not only be building up points for this tournament, but I'll be adding them to my tournament points that I earned from Beachhead earlier in the year to put towards the overall Bonehead tournament series. So not long to go now. It's only in a couple of weeks. Depending on when this video goes out, it will be the 20th. So 2 weeks to the day I'm making this video, but obviously it will go out after that. We'll see how the Nagashizar Nightmares get on in their first ever college outing in a Dungeon Bowl setting. But yeah, just want to reiterate a huge thanks to the Bonehead Podcast for everything they do for the Blood Bowl community and for the excellent content that they make. Please check them out. I'll leave links in the description, as I said earlier, and check out Entoyment as well, because it's a brilliant store full of brilliant people. Anyway, that's it for me now, and I will do a review video to say how I got on. Obviously in a couple of weeks' time. Well, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.